In the gym world, there's an ongoing battle: compound versus isolation exercises. One's like a multitasking superhero, hitting multiple muscles at once. The other's a sniper, targeting a single muscle with precision. In this video, I'm breaking it all down using my own training experience, plenty of trial and error, and science-backed research. We'll dive into what sets these two styles apart, their pros and cons, and most importantly, how to choose the right one for your goals. Whether you want to get stronger, build muscle, or train smarter, by the end of this, you'll know exactly when to go big with compound lifts and when to laser in with isolation work. Compound exercises are movements that engage multiple muscle groups and joints at the same time. Essentially, one exercise recruits several muscles in one go. Think of moves like the squat, deadlift, bench press, pull-ups, or shoulder press. These involve multiple joints bending or extending together: knees, hips, shoulders, elbows, etc., bringing lots of muscles to the party. For example, a squat isn't just a leg exercise, it works your quads, hamstrings, glutes, core, and even your back and calves to some extent. Because compound lifts use many muscles, you can typically lift heavier weights with them. After all, you have a whole team of muscles sharing the load. This often leads to better overall strength gains, since using several muscles together allows handling bigger resistance. From my experience, compound exercises give you serious bang for your buck in workouts. When I first started training, I noticed that on days I focused on big compound lifts, like squat and bench press, I'd leave the gym feeling like I worked every part of my body. And usually, I was hungrier too, thanks to all those muscles firing and calories burning. Research backs this up. Compound movements keep your heart rate higher and burn more calories in a given time than isolation work. This makes them fantastic if you're short on time or aiming for fat loss. You work multiple areas in one shot and torch more calories doing so. In fact, compound lifts are so efficient that many functional training programs like CrossFit, F45, etc. are built around them. Beyond efficiency and strength, compound exercises have big functional benefits. Because they mimic real-world motions like lifting, pushing, pulling, and squatting, they help you build strength that translates into everyday activities. Want to carry all the grocery bags in one trip or hoist your suitcase into the overhead bin? Compound training has your back. These moves also improve your coordination and balance, since multiple body parts must work in harmony. For example, a deadlift requires your legs, core, and back to coordinate smoothly, kind of like an orchestra of muscles. When done correctly, compound lifts can even reduce injury risk in sports or daily life because they strengthen the supportive muscles around your joints and teach your body to move as a unit. That said, compound exercises can be a bit more complex to learn. Since they involve multiple moving parts, form is critical. I won't lie, when I first tried barbell deadlifts, my technique was all over the place, and my lower back let me know about it the next day. It took practice and watching some tutorial videos to nail the form. Many compound lifts, like squats or cleans, have a learning curve, so don't be afraid to start light, go slow, and even ask a trainer for guidance on technique if possible. As one fitness expert notes, compound movements are suitable for all levels, but may benefit from some coaching due to their more complex nature. Once you get them right though, they're gold. Compound lifts should form the foundation of most strength training routines. They're useful from beginner stages to elite training. In contrast to compounds, isolation exercises involve just one joint or a single muscle group at a time. The goal here is to laser focus on one specific muscle. Classics include moves like bicep curls, which pretty much just flex the elbow to hit the biceps, tricep pushdowns, leg extensions targeting the quadriceps, hamstring curls, calf raises, or lateral raises for the shoulders. When you do an isolation exercise, you're aiming to have that one muscle do most of the work, with minimal help from other muscles. Of course, in reality, no exercise perfectly isolates one muscle. Your body loves to have stabilizer muscles lending a hand, but isolation moves are designed to zero in on one area as much as possible. For instance, a leg extension machine will really blast your quads, and a calf raise will make your calves burn without your glutes or hamstrings doing much. In my early gym days, I'll admit I was a curlaholic. I'd spend ages doing bicep curls in hopes of getting bigger arms. The good news, isolation exercises do work for muscle growth. You can definitely feel the pump and fatigue in that one muscle. Bodybuilders rely on isolation lifts to sculpt their physiques because these moves let them target specific muscles for maximum size and definition. If you want to bring up a lagging body part, say you feel your biceps are small or your rear delts aren't popping, isolation exercises are the precise tools for the job. They're also super useful if you're in rehabilitation or fixing an imbalance. Physical therapists often use isolation movements to strengthen a weak muscle after injury. For example, after a knee injury, you might do isolated quad exercises to rebuild strength before you get back into full squatting. By focusing on that one muscle, you ensure it's doing its job without others compensating. Another scenario where isolation shines is when you've already built a base of strength and want to fine-tune your physique. Imagine you've been doing lots of compound lifts. You've gotten stronger overall, but perhaps your biceps or calves are still not as developed as you'd like. Been there, notice that. Adding some curls or calf raises can target those areas that compound lifts might indirectly work, but not maximally. In fact, experts suggest that once you have good overall fitness, isolations can give more definition to a specific muscle and address areas that compound moves might overlook. A bit of personal experience. After focusing on big lifts for a year, I realized my shoulders weren't getting the love they deserved. My overhead press helped, but I needed lateral raises and an isolation move to really hit the side delts. Incorporating those made a visible difference in rounding out my shoulders. Isolation exercises are generally less technically complex than compound lifts. Many are performed on machines or with simple movements, so beginners often find them less intimidating. For example, it's easier for a newbie to figure out a seated leg curl machine than to master a barbell deadlift on day one. When I first walked into a gym, I was certainly more comfortable hopping on the leg extension machine. It had a nifty diagram and everything, whereas the squat rack looked like a medieval torture device. Because of this, some newcomers start with mostly isolation exercises. However, the consensus is that it's best to build up overall strength with compounds first and use isolations to supplement. If you do start with isolations, just be sure to balance things out. Train opposing muscle groups to avoid imbalances. Like if you do leg extensions for your quads, do some leg curls for your hamstrings too, so you're not strengthening one without the other. One more perk of isolation moves: they can quickly fatigue a specific muscle, which is great if you're short on that mind-muscle connection. Ever do a high-rep set of dumbbell curls and feel that bicep burning? It's a unique, okay, borderline masochistic satisfaction. By exhausting one muscle, isolation exercises ensure your bigger, stronger muscles don't take over the work. This can iron out weak links in your body. For example, if your triceps are limiting your bench press, doing some isolation triceps work can strengthen them so that they don't fail before your chest does. Strengthening these weaker areas can help your compound lifts become even more effective and reduce injury risk in the long run. Let's put them head to head. Here are the major differences between compound and isolation exercises and how each impacts your training. Compound exercises engage multiple muscles and joints in one movement. Imagine an entire team of muscles working together. Whereas isolation exercises target one primary muscle group at a time. For example, a pull-up will activate your back, biceps, shoulders, and core, but a bicep curl pretty much just hits the biceps with a little forearm and shoulder stabilizing. If compound moves are a full-course meal, isolation moves are a single ingredient. Sometimes you want the whole feast, sometimes you just want to taste one flavor. With compounds, you can typically lift heavier weights overall, since multiple muscles share the load. This leads to larger strength gains and can stimulate broad muscle growth and even hormonal responses, like that post-squat testosterone boost, because so much of your body is involved. Isolation lifts use lighter weights, focusing on one muscle. You won't curl anywhere near what you can squat, right? The trade-off is that isolations let you hone in on that muscle's individual strength and size. If your goal is maximal overall strength or hitting personal records in big lifts, compounds take the crown. But if your goal is to really bring up the peak of your bicep or isolate the glute medius for hip stability, isolations are indispensable. Compound exercises are time efficient. You work several areas at once, meaning you can get a full body workout with just a few moves. They also ramp up your heart rate more and burn extra calories because of the large muscle mass involved. Doing heavy lunges will leave you breathless in a way leg curls never will. This makes compounds excellent for fat loss and conditioning. On the other hand, isolation exercises typically burn fewer calories, only one small area is working, and you'd have to do many different isolation exercises to hit your entire body. Imagine on a full body day, you could do 5 compound lifts to cover everything, or potentially 15 plus isolation exercises to hit each muscle. That's a lot of sets. So, for those pressed for time, compounds are the go-to. As someone who often has just an hour to train, I prioritize squats, deadlifts, etc., and then sprinkle in isolation if time permits. Compounds often mimic everyday movements or sports actions. They build functional strength, coordination, and balance. Think of picking up a heavy box, deadlift motion, or standing up from a chair squat motion. Training compound lifts prepares you for those tasks. They also tend to improve athletic performance, jump higher, run faster, lift more in real life, and can reduce injury risk by strengthening multiple muscles and the way they work together. Isolation exercises are less about functional movement and more about targeted goals. They're superb for bodybuilding aesthetics, chiseling that one muscle to make it stand out, and for rehabilitation of a specific joint or muscle. If you're recovering from a shoulder injury, you might do specific rotator cuff isolation work to build strength without stressing other parts. In terms of athletic use, isolations can help ensure no muscle is lagging, which itself indirectly helps function by removing weak links. But you won't base an entire functional training program on leg extensions and bicep curls alone. Compound lifts usually require more skill and attention to form. There's a coordination aspect. You need to fire multiple muscle groups in the right sequence with proper technique. This means compounds carry a higher risk of injury if done incorrectly. Like a bad form deadlift could hurt your back. I always advocate learning compound moves with light weights first, and maybe getting a spotter or trainer to check your form, especially for exercises like squats or bench press. Isolation exercises are generally simpler movements. It's not too hard to get the hang of a tricep pushdown or a dumbbell curl. Machines make isolations even simpler by guiding the movement path. This often makes isolation lifts more approachable for beginners nervous about free weights. Plus, since you're using lighter weights and fewer muscles, the chance of a catastrophic form failure is lower. It's tough to seriously injure yourself doing a wrist curl, for instance, compared to a heavy barbell squat. Of course, you still need correct form to avoid tweaks. Yes, you can cheat curl your way to a sore back, but the complexity is lower. If you love the feeling of a muscle pump or working a muscle to exhaustion, isolation has the edge. You can really burn out one muscle at a time. This is great for establishing a mind-muscle connection, feeling exactly which muscle is working. Compound exercises distribute the effort, so each muscle might not feel as maximally pumped, since as soon as one fatigues, the whole lift usually has to stop. For example, if you're doing pull-ups and your biceps give out, your back doesn't get further stimulation either, at least not in that set. In contrast, if your sole goal is to toast your biceps, doing curls will push them to failure without being limited by other muscles. This is partly why bodybuilders include isolation work, to ensure each muscle gets thoroughly fatigued and stimulated for growth. In summary, compound versus isolation is not a battle of good versus bad. It's more like a toolbox with different tools for different jobs. Compound exercises are multi-purpose power tools, efficient, effective for big jobs, while isolation exercises are fine-tuning tools, precise, targeted work on detailed areas. Which leads us to the big question: which one should you be using? It's tempting to pick a winner in the compound versus isolation debate, but the truth is, both have their place, and the smartest training plans use a mix. Which one you lean into depends on your goals, experience level, and even how much time you have. If you're new to lifting or want full body strength and fitness, compound exercises like squats, deadlifts, pull-ups, presses should be your foundation. They build strength, coordination, and muscle efficiently, and research shows they're just as effective as isolation for beginners. Plus, they burn more calories. Start with the big lifts. You can add isolation work like curls or leg extensions once you've built a base. If your goal is max strength or athleticism, compound lifts reign supreme. They train your body to move as a unit and produce serious power. Athletes and powerlifters focus almost exclusively on these for good reason. They deliver better strength, explosiveness, and carry over to real-life performance better than isolation exercises alone. For muscle growth, the magic is in the combo. Compounds help you build mass and move heavy weights. Isolations let you zero in on smaller muscles for symmetry and shape. Think bench press plus chest fly or squats plus leg curls. Studies suggest both types of exercises build muscle when total volume is matched. So use compounds as your main course and isolations as the side dish to fill in the gaps. Got injuries or weak links? Isolation can help rehab and bring up lagging muscles. If your triceps fatigue before your chest in pressing movements, or if one leg is weaker after an injury, isolation work can restore balance and prevent compensations. Short on time? Stick with compounds. You can hit almost your whole body with 3 to 5 moves and still make serious gains. Bonus, they boost hormones and torch calories. Add isolations when you have more time to refine weak spots or chase that satisfying pump. If you love the pump or mind-muscle connection, isolation work delivers. Curls, lateral raises, and leg extensions help you feel the muscle working and build that connection. Just do them after compounds so you're not too fatigued for the heavy lifts. In the end, a hybrid approach works best for most people. Compounds build the base, strength, size, and coordination. Isolations let you polish your physique, correct imbalances, and train with precision. A push day might start with bench press, then finish with cable flies. A leg day could begin with squats, then add hamstring curls and calf raises. It's not compound versus isolation, it's compound plus isolation. So use the right tool at the right time. Lift heavy, train smart, and don't be afraid to curl in the mirror now and then. We all do it. If you want to learn the differences between hypertrophy and strength training, make sure to watch the next video.